Hello and welcome to this first video in a new series looking at HTML5 and CSS. First thing I gotta do is start off with a little disclaimer to say that I am not a HTML5 expert. I have made websites with HTML5 in the past, but this is around 5 years ago, so what I say or some of the terminology I use might be incorrect, but we're going to explore it anyway and go for this journey. Now, I'll be using Dreamweaver in these videos. However, you can use any text editing program that allows you to save in the .html format, such as Notepad++, Notepad, WordPad, etc. The only reason I'm using Dreamweaver is I have the Adobe Suite already on my machine, and it just makes more logical sense for me because we can see what errors and it displays things in a bit of a nicer format. So I'm going to start off by creating a new website. And obviously I want to make sure that I save this or set this as a HTML5 document. We'll be using internal CSS for the purposes of these videos, which means the CSS scripting or styling will be done within the same page, not as an external file. The reason for that, again, is just so we don't end up with a video series that is in a 20 or 30 or 40 video length. We're trying to keep this fairly condensed, so we're going to do it internal. But the same principles will apply for external, except we'd have to just cross-reference back to the external file when we upload it onto a server. So I'm just going to create my website. I'm just going to call this tutorial site and hit create. And I'm just going to change my views quickly because I don't like the way this is viewed at the moment. So let's split it vertically, and I'm going to split it this way. Okay, so when you ever start a HTML document, you need to make sure you have these following properties in there. So you've got your doc type, which specifies what the document type is. In this case, it's a HTML file. We have our open and close tag brackets, these little arrows, essentially. These will be our tags. So whenever we're talking about tags or referencing areas, we're basically talking about these here. At the very top we have our head. So our head in terms of HTML is where all the thinking, the personality, the style goes. It's the part of the website that basically makes the website look and behave a certain way, whereas the body is just the outward facing appearance, the content, the text and images, etc. So we have our head with our close head tag here. Whenever we open a tag, we need to make sure we close it with this little slash line. We're going to be using UTF-8, which is fairly standard, and we've just got our title. This title here is also what would show up as the tab name if we were to open this up in our browser. So I'm just going to give some space here. Down here we've got our body, and I'm going to also add some space there. So just to show you what I mean, if I was to, let's say, type hello world with the P, which stands for paragraph. You notice we have our open P for the start of our tagging, and whenever we have something to open, we must always close it. So we've got our close P to finish it, and then it displays it in that order. Now the way HTML works is it works in the order of whatever is at the top is written or displayed first. We can push things around, and we'll look at that in a future video which looks at dividers. But for the purposes of this video, we're just as an introduction to HTML5, I'm just going to go through some of the most common tags and the most common avenues that we need to explore. So as you can see, we've got a P, which stands for paragraph. We have a thing called headers, which is indicated by a H. And then H1 would be the largest size of a header, all the way through to H6, although you can go further than that. Any of these headers can be overwritten in the style, and we'll look at styling in the next video. But for now, like I said, I'm just going to go through the basics. So just to show you the difference between example H1 and H2. I always also quite like to keep everything fairly neat as I go through it, so I try and keep things in the same line but also indented. So what I mean by indentation is where we've got this kind of like space here, it shows that this is nestled within this parent, and it just makes it easier for the person who picks up your website to sort of decode what's going on if they need to do any troubleshooting. So as you see, H1, H4, etc., and it will just keep going smaller and smaller and smaller as we go through it. We'll go through styling text again in more detail in a future video, but just to basically kind of give an indication, you can obviously bold, italicized, change the sort of whether it's got a strike through, underline, etc. And we'll go through all that when we go to actually styling our text, our paragraphs, and put some content in there. But for now, again, I'm just trying to get the core basics across. Up here on our header, we're going to just add a style tag. And again, we'll go through this in a future video. But this style tag is where we can control how everything looks within our body. So, for example, if I wanted to adjust the color of my paragraph, I would tap P to reference to my tag P or paragraph. I would open this little bracket here, and I could type in color. Bearing in mind this is Americanized, so whenever we type anything we have to use the American spelling. So I could type in color and then choose my color after this little colon. And since I do that, it gives me in Dreamweaver a variety of preset colors, or I could use the color picker and choose my own custom color. So let's go over red and hit enter. So the way we do colorations or adjusting colors is we do this hashtag, and then we would use the hex value for that color. So this is where it's quite useful to understand your color theory, your color wheel within things like Photoshop or other photo editing programs to be able to tell what the colors are. There are some useful websites out there that allow you that tell you how to get these colors. But again, we're going through this fairly haphazardly. Whenever we want to add more control, so let's say I wanted to also add some styling to my paragraph, not just color, in terms of its alignment, I need to make sure I put this sort of semicolon there. And the way I tend to do it is I tend to lay things out like this. So I have the kind of everything that's controlled within that paragraph on a new line within it. We must always end it with one of these semicolons, otherwise it won't know when we've finished with that control area. And I can just now type in, for example, text align. And let's say I want my text to be centered. I could say text align center, and now my text will be aligned to the center of my page or whatever container we put it in. And again, we'll go through containers when we look at dividers. Just a sort of heads up, I do have a kind of version of what we're going to be creating on another screen, so I can actually cross-reference to that in case I get lost at any point. Another thing that we may also want to add is down here where we've got our meta chara set at the top. I'm actually also going to add a meta name viewport space content equals width equals device minus width, comma, initial scale. equals 1. And then close this up with just an arrow or a bracket, like so. What this basically will allow us to do is this will start to control or conform our website to our width of our device, or allow us to actually set that. So when our website is below a certain threshold, we can tell it to start pushing things around or to scale things accordingly. Without this meta name or an initial state up in here, we will find it a bit harder to actually scale this later on. So this has been part 1 of our HTML5 tutorial series. We'll go through this and we'll build a website bit by bit, and we'll try and keep this as logical as possible. However, please bear in mind that we're going to sometimes have to go back on ourselves just by the nature of how we need to create our website, for example. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.